Okay, it is 9 o'clock, so we're going to go ahead and get started. Thank you so much for being here. I'm Allison Ryson. I am Director of Literacy for Terrell ISD. So we are glad that you were here. Our session will go until about 9:45, and we're just going to be talking about ways you can support the children you have in your care to help them in reading. And so this is specifically for K-1-2 students, but these strategies could also be helpful for older kids. All right, so what to know about reading levels? So a reading level will be reported on your child's report card. And it's usually reported as a number. So you'll see that on your child's report card. So what you need to know is that a reading level is determined by a reading assessment. So your child is given a reading assessment 3 times a year. And the teacher will have a student read from a book, and it's really assessing 3 things. It's assessing how well the child reads accurately. So are they able to read word for word? Also, it's assessing their fluency. And what that means is, are they able to use expression and talk like the character sounds in the book? Are they able to use phrases when they read? So not only reading word by word. And the other questions on the assessment are just asking questions like, tell me what happened in the story, or retell what happened in the book. And so just assessing their comprehension. So maybe their accuracy is really high, but we want to know, are they able to understand what they're reading? Like I mentioned earlier, the reading level is reported as a number, and you will find that on your child's report card. You can always ask your child's teacher to, because they have that information. The assessment for the beginning of the year has already been done, so your child already has a reading level. And again, that's assessed 3 times a year. So the next time it'll be assessed would be in January. But what's important to know is your child moves through reading levels even though they're not assessed, okay? So let's get into how are these reading levels used. So the first way that a reading level is used is to help students find books, because we don't want students reading books that are way too hard or way too easy. So this level kind of puts them in a zone of, this is the books that will be about, where you're able to be successful when reading. But we also don't want just to limit kids based on their reading level, because interest really matters. You can think about your own reading life and think about things that you love to read or that you don't enjoy. And reading is more enjoyable when it's something that you're interested in reading. From the teacher's perspective, this reading level is used to instruct students. So teachers are well equipped in the ways to teach students at their reading level. So it's really thinking about, what are kids ready for in this reading level? And what are they doing well that we can continue to encourage them to continue doing? So the question is, what reading level should my child be on? So I'm going to leave this up for just a little bit, and you can think about the children in your care and what grade they're in. So for example, kindergarten, when they enter, like this time of the year right now, kinders are usually on a level 1. And the numbers just increase all the way up, and it sometimes skips a number and just reports even numbers. Then you'll notice that in kinder, there's a 4 at the very end. So that means at the end of kindergarten, kids to be on level and ready for first grade should be on a 4, all right? Then for first grade, you know, they're usually entering at a 4 or 6, because if they're ending kindergarten on a 4, then that means they're going into first grade on a 4 or 6. If they're continuing to read over the summer, they'll probably enter on a 6. And then you see throughout the year, they just continue to go up reading levels. And so you'll see in first grade where we have 6, 8, 10, 14, and 16. So at the middle of the year in January, when we test the students again, they're probably going to be on a level 10 or so. And then we're hoping that at the end of first grade, they're on a 16. And what this tells us is that kids are ready for second grade. And if they're reading a little bit below where they should be, that just tells us as teachers that there's just maybe some intervention that we need to do for our children. And then you see at second grade that they're going to come in around a 18 and they need to leave on a 30 to be ready for third grade. So you see in kinder, they don't move through as many levels as first and second grade. They're beginning to read in kindergarten, and so they don't go through as many levels. So if you want to take a picture or something, or just jot this down, I'll leave this up for just a couple of more seconds so you can have this for your records. Okay, now I want to just show you some book examples of kinder first and second. So if you'll just bear with me just a little bit, I'm going to switch over to a document camera. Okay. So this is an example of a kindergarten book. So this is what we call a level 1 book. So what they're reading about right now, if they're reading on level. And this book is called Run. And as we go through the book, you're going to notice that there's usually only one line of text. So the duck is running. And oftentimes the pictures match the words. So the pictures are really, really helpful in the early levels of kindergarten to help kids read. So then you'll notice that the sentences are almost the same on every page. And the pictures are really helpful. So the dog is running. The fox is running. So you see there's only one line of text and about 4 words or so. So that is a kindergarten book. And let's see how many pages are in this book. There's about 16 pages. So it says the man is running and then the dinosaur is running. That's why all the characters are running. So there's about 16 pages. This is a book that's in kinder classrooms. So this is part of our curriculum. The books are really vibrant and fun and interesting for kids. So let's now go to a first grade book. So now this is probably mid-year first grade, or maybe like October or November of first grade. So this book is The Noise in the Garden. And so this looks like there's going to be 2 characters. And wow, you notice the difference, right? So now there's lines of text on both pages. The other thing that you'll notice is that someone's talking and the sentence goes on 2 lines. So it says, "Now I will have some peace and quiet," Bear said. So kids are having to read and then return to the line below and continue. So anyways, you see how there's a lot more words, and there's multiple characters. And there is 16 pages in this book as well, but a lot more words and more events that kids are having to keep track of. So that's going to be a first grade book. Now let's go to second grade. So this is second grade, like where they should be reading right now at the beginning of the school year. So if we open it up, this is Mr. Putter and Tabby. This is a series book. So what that means is there's a lot of books that tell the story of Mr. Putter and Tabby. So the biggest thing to notice for second grade is their chapter books. So there's, it's a little chapter book, but they are chapter books. And so right here, there's chapter 1 is toys. So again, you'll notice that there's lines of text on both pages. And kids, were having to return sweep again. You'll also notice the punctuation. The authors of these level of books are using more than just end punctuation. So kids are having to pay attention to that as well. So you'll see this is a chapter book, and most second graders, if they're reading on level, are reading these type of books. Again, this book is in classrooms and in schools. Mr. Putter and Tabby. These are good books also to just purchase for your kids to have. You can find them pretty easily. These are real popular, this series book, Mr. Putter and Tabby. Okay. Hey, let's think about ways to support your child now. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to give you 3 or 4 ways that you can help your child at home, and pretty immediately, like this week, you can go and help them. And you won't need a lot other than a book, usually. So let me go ahead and get back to the document camera, and I'll show you some ways to help your children. All right. So kindergarten. All right. So the first thing that's going to be really important is helping your children hear sounds. And so that's what they're learning right now in class. So you want to, while they're reading, you want to think about words and help them hear the sounds in the words. So one question you might ask is, what other words start like brown? So if they're reading the word brown, you might say, what sound do you hear at the beginning of brown? And then you can just start to just say aloud, you and the child, what other words start like brown? The other thing that's going to be really important is building words with magnetic letters or letter cards. So you can find magnetic letters at the dollar store, but you can also use just letter tiles, and so I'm going to show you this. So if you're building a word like, let's say, your, which is a high frequency word, we'll get into that in a minute, but these are just letter tiles. And so you'll just want to have your kids build words like that. And they can play a game. We call it Mix It, Fix It. And so we mix it up, and then they fix it. So you might want to jot that down as a game to play. Mix it, fix it. The other thing that you want to take note of is if you need these letter tiles, please reach out to your teacher, because I have some that we can send home. And then I just cut them like really quickly, and then they can be used just as magnetic letters. The other thing that you can do with your child is help your children break words into syllables. And this is for first grade too, and even second. So K1 and 2, break words into syllables. So I'm going to give you an example. Usually the illustrations help children as well. So, and remember this book, Run. So one word that you can break into syllables is running. And remember, the pictures are really helpful, right? Because in every picture, the character is running. So running. So you'll just clap the syllables, running. So that's one thing you can do for children in K1 or 2. The other thing that kids are doing in kindergarten that's really important, that we don't do as adults anymore, but is to point under each word as they read. So it'll look like this. The duck is running. That's really important because that means that children have one-to-one matching and that they know that this is a word. If they do something like this, the duck is running, they are still learning that these are words, okay? So that could be another question you ask your child, like, find the letter D. Find the word is. And then you can say frame it, and they put just a little frame around it. And that'll show you that your child knows the difference between a letter and a word. And remember, I told you at the very beginning that your child, when they're taking these assessments, the teacher is going to ask your child, tell me what happened in the story. And it's like a conversation like that. They read the story, and then the teacher says, so tell me what happened in the story. So you could do the same thing, even if it's a book that you're reading to your child aloud, because the book is maybe too hard, or they're not reading it, or you're sharing the read aloud. You can always ask, so talk about what happened in the book. Or if you're reading nonfiction, which means that it's going to be information that's given in the book, you could also ask your student, what did you learn in this book? So those are 2 questions that'll be really, really helpful for you to ask your children. Okay, let's go to first grade. So first grade, it's going to be important at home that you reread books and that you act them out. So you could say, let's reread chapter 2, and you act like Mr. Putter and I'll act like Tabby. So acting out, because that helps children to comprehend what's happening in the story. The next thing that you'll want to do, and this is for K1-2 as well, you're going to write sight words. So let me explain what sight words are. Sight words are also called high frequency words. And just what that means is those are those words that show up very often in books that kids just have to know, like at a snap. We also call them snap words. So some of these words are those words like I, me, his, your, at, that are going to come up all the time. And kids have to know, lots and lots of high frequency words and really have them memorized so that when they're reading, they don't get stuck on those words, because oftentimes those words you can't decode. Like you can't sound out your. It's just a word you have to know. So here's an example. So you can just get some index cards and you ask your teacher for high frequency words. And there's a list that some really smart researchers have put together that said these are the words that your first grader has to know. And so you can just write them on index cards and then just practice them with your child. Another game that's really fun to play is like a matching game. And so let's see, you can say, you can have a word on one of the high frequency words, ask your child to read it, and then get books out and they have to match, see if they can find this word his in their books, which they will be able to because they're high frequency words and they're kind of all over the place. So here's your, and remember we built your with these magnetic tiles or these letter tiles. So that's another game that you can play. And for first grade, again, you'll always want to kind of end the book with asking a comprehension question. And so again, you can ask, what happened in the story? Or another question that they're asked usually on reading assessments is, does the story remind you of anything? And, some appropriate answers are answers that connect back to the book, like, yeah, you know what, I remember getting my haircut for the first time, and I was kind of scared too. Like, you're sitting in a chair and someone that you don't know is coming with like, clippers. And so that is showing that the child is understanding what's happening in the book. If the book is about, because there's a book about a child who goes to get a haircut and they're scared. So making connections is really, really important for first grade. All right, second grade. So second grade, you're going to want to reread books with your child and reread for fluency. And I'll explain what that means. What that means is that kids are reading the way that the character would sound. So if the character is scared, the child is phrasing the sentence and reading it like they're scared. The other thing fluency means is that they have an appropriate rate, so they're not reading word for word. And so you'll just practice. You'll say, let's read this paragraph again, and let's read it like the character would say it. So I'll give you like an example. So we would expect a second grader to read with this type of fluency. Then he put the plane on the grass and stepped back and pressed the start button, but the plane did not start. It just rolled over and died. Tabby purred. So you see how I'm using the punctuation to help me read the sentences with an appropriate rate. The other thing that you're going to want to do to help your child in second grade is encourage them to stick to a book from start to finish. So this chapter book, Mr. Petter and Tabby, will take about 25 to 30 minutes to finish. Now, I'm not saying that they have to finish it in one sitting, and this is where a bookmark is going to be really important for second grade. So you might want to jot that down if you have kids in second grade. Bookmarks are going to be important. So, but you'll want to encourage them not to, abandon the book. And there are times where if the book is too hard or they're just not interested, that we just put a book to the side, and that's fine too. But encouraging them to stick to a book and actually read all the chapters. It's going to be important for second grade. For second grade, because there's chapters, you're going to want to stop them at the end of a chapter. So before you get to chapter 2, you'll stop and say, and just ask them, okay, tell me the big events that happened in chapter 1. So you're asking them to tell you big parts of the story. It's important at this stage of their reading not to just give you all the details, because on their assessments, we're looking for, can they tell you just the big events of the story, of the chapter. Lastly, for second grade, they have to use multiple sources of information to solve words. And all that means is they're having, and just like we do as adults, they have to think about what they know about letter-sound relationships when they get to a word they don't know. So if they get to a word and they're stuck on it, you want to encourage them to think about what's happening in the story. Like, what would make sense? Are the characters running? Would that make sense? And also thinking about what they know about words, because at this point in second grade, they know a lot about words. They know that they can look for parts of the word that they know. They can think about how the word starts or how the word ends. And so that's going to be really important. And you can always ask your child, like, if they get to a word they don't know, you can say, what can you try? That's a question you can ask, because that'll give you a lot of information. If they're not sure on what to try, that'll be really important to talk to your child's teacher and say, there's some words that he or she is stuck on and he doesn't know what to try. Can you help us? And we are here to support you. So those are the ways to support your child. Thank you so much for being here with us. Just to recap, if you know how to use the chat box, if you will enter your name and your child's name and the school they attend, that'll be helpful. Also, the other thing I want to remind you of is if you need letter tiles, tell your teacher and we will send some home for your child to cut out and use. Also, magnetic letters can be bought at the dollar store. And the last thing I just wanted to share with you is where you can find books, and most of these are free. So if you'll give me just 1 second, and I'm going to share another screen with you. Okay, so here are some places. Okay. I'm sorry, somebody was at my door. Here are the places where you can get books, places where you can find books. So getepic.com. Epic was free for parents during the pandemic. I am not sure. I don't think it's free right now. So that's the only one on this list that's not free. The other website you can go to is called lovingtoread.com. And all of these that I'm sharing with you are books that look like the books that I'm sharing with you. These lower level books, because oftentimes if you go just to the store to buy books, they might be a little bit too hard for your children, but that's okay because you can read to them, and that's just as helpful if you just sit with your child and read. The other place, of course, is the library, so that's going to be such a great resource to go and check out books. The other website is called flyleafpublishing.com. And just as of last night, I went to go make sure that these books are free. So they have books on kinder, first, and second grade level that are free for you to read. The other website is called realbooks.com. And another website is called uniteforliteracy.com that will have books that your child in K1 or 2 are able to read. And then lastly, I have Ask Your Child's Teacher. So if you're having trouble finding books that look similar to the ones we shared today, then you'll just want to ask your child's teacher and say, you know, I attended Allison's parent training and we just need somewhere to find books that kind of look like the ones she showed us. And your teacher should be able to send books home, or if not, they can reach out to me and we will make it happen to make sure that you all have books at home, because that's going to be really, really important. Again, in the meantime, while you're trying to find books that look like the ones I showed you, you can always read to your child aloud, or you can find magazines to read together. So reading together is equally as important. So before we end, I'm just going to check the chat box just to make sure there's no questions that kind of came in. Okay, first grade page back up so we can screenshot. Yes, I can do that. And I'm also going, oh, but I got to share my screen. Let me get it set up. There we go. Here's first grade. You can screenshot it. So hopefully you were able to take a picture of that. And just again, thank you so much for spending your morning with us. We're going to try and we're going to have these modules once every month. And so we'll alternate between having them in the morning and then in the evening. And we're also going to send this out in Spanish, a recorded video for tomorrow that we're going to send out. So thank you so much. My name is Allison Rison, Rison, and you can find me out on elementary campuses, and my office is at the admin building. So if you need anything, we are here to support you. We are just so grateful that you chose Terrell ISD, and we will be in touch. Thank you so, so much. I'm just going to hang out for just a little bit in case you have some questions. Thank you so much.